Hello and welcome to all the men and women of the West. I'm Joe, here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
Today we continue our Dragonlance podcast. Hip hip hooray. Another 6 chapters or so, with this time the story following the morning dinner in chapter 7, the morning after, of course, Tanis dumped Lorana. It's commented that Gilthanas is eyeing Tanis coldly, and I'm going to say sure, certainly, but there are 2 factors to consider on Gilthanas' end. He does have to behave that way around his dad, because one has to bear in mind his dad is sending him to his death. Gilthanas is essentially in the situation where he wants to go out on this mission. His father may just put him in a position of having to wait for the enemy invasion rather than going on offense like Gilthanas wants. So he might be put on defense rather than getting what his way if he's too nice to Tanis during the dinner. Solostrin has a remarkably spiteful side. Honestly, it's probably more that he's being impassive and keeping his face expressionless, and Tanis is to an extent melodramatizing it, because Tanis does have a melodramatic side. Rather like Lorana, they're fairly well suited for each other in that regard, I guess. He's very interested in Fizban and knows who he is. There is a bit of a pig Latin language that Tanis and Raistlin later speak in, and wherein they discuss Fizban, and Raistlin claims, "Oh, I don't know who he is. I just know he's powerful and I like that." In book 3, pretty much stated, Raistlin knew. And Raistlin has no problem lying to Tanis' face. So, honestly, while I do tend to say that he's generally loyal to the companions, I will actually agree with some in that Raistlin is dishonest a lot of the time. So, he's a weird balance of actually being honest at times with the companions and being utterly dishonest. Gilthanas, who starts to sing, then the other elves start to join in, because why not, I guess. On page 333, regarding the Dragonlance, it seems Fizban's about to say something, interrupting the speaker, but Raistlin hushes him. Why does he hush him? And tell him, shush, he's talking. Now, it's not out of respect for the speaker, because honestly, Raistlin probably took one look at him and went, what is with this moron? And then probably looked at Porthios and went, what's with that moron? Is very, very bright, because it's Paladin. I wonder if maybe Fizban was going to interrupt regarding the Dragonlance and bring a bit of attention to himself, and Raistlin saw it as don't. Kind of in a way catching him and reminding him of his cover.
Solostrin, though,
overall position here completely hypocritical. A chance to live that many elves were not given when humans brought the cataclysm down upon us, is what he says. That's part of his speech to the army, essentially, or the crack commandos unit, about to go out and risk their lives for him. What a jerk.
Farquaad when it comes to him.
Yeah, he has the exact same personality, although I kind of imagine Solostrin and Porthios having the longer Habsburgian chins almost sometimes. I might use a Habsburg image for the art for Solostrin in this video, because honestly, his speech when he was a political supporter of the king priest of Istar and was involved with Istar and was actually encouraging the Beldenus into going insane just makes me shake my head. The tactic of retreating from Qualinesti for parts unknown is still a tactic I'm unsure of. In regards to the invasion of Qualinesti, the army of Verminard makes it in, but don't actually take Qualinesti. So those who probably remain behind basically chase out and tear apart Verminard's army. Qualinesti remains unconquered by spring dawning. Characters recount about elves. In chapter 8, Goldmoon is the one who worries about Theros, with Gilthanas bowing respectfully to Goldmoon and reassuring her that Theros is doing well. We get the moment of Tika getting to wear armor. Suddenly, Goldmoon now knows everything about how a warrior dresses in armor. These are barbarians. They have iron armor and steel and whatnot? I wasn't sure before. Sorry if I'm a little like, okay, what kind of barbarians are these? Don't know. Suddenly, she apparently was raised not as chieftain's daughter, but as warrior woman. A warrior is someone you can throw the life away of. Yes, chieftain's daughter, but her chief duty would be to marry well for her father's sake and bear sons who could lead the tribal warriors. She was raised, yes, to be a chieftain woman, but probably almost more a wise woman. As chieftain's daughter, to fight in the front line would be probably something that would horrify her dad. We gotta bear in mind, she had a very sheltered childhood. So where is this warrior woman thing coming from?
You'd think it'd be more Lorana that would help her out with her armor.
It was her duty in her father's absence to lead the tribe to war. Barbarian tribes will never send the chieftain's daughter to fight in the front line. Maybe they might employ other women as warriors, but for Goldmoon to do it, the thing is, I'm left wondering, is there anything Goldmoon cannot do? I just view it as, if she was raised a boy, she must be much more butch. If she was raised a woman, it's one or the other. Okay, you can have it both ways, but the problem with Goldmoon is they had already established for 340 40 pages by now which way they went with the character. And now they're just adding more skills. They keep adding phobias. They keep adding magical skills that not even Raistlin as Master of Past and Present could probably pull. They keep adding more skills, abilities, and phobias to her, and then they keep forgetting it. That's my beef with Goldmoon. What's her next skill? Is she going to be a better swordsman than Sturm or Tanis? Is she going to be able to outmuscle Caramon? I just find that Goldmoon here, it's getting to be too much. There's too many skills. I don't mind a character who has a lot of mad skills. Hey, I liked Musashi in the Musashi novel. He had mad skills. He was basically good at everything. But it was much more organic with how the character acquired those skills. Same with Otsu from the Vagabondo manga and Musashi novel. She demonstrated a bit of knowledge of knife fighting, but she was the adoptive daughter of a samurai warlord who taught her over the course of 2-3 years. The thing with Goldmoon is she was not simply some rando adoptive daughter who's the youngest child in the family. Rather, only child. You would not risk that. You would marry her off to a warrior, the best warrior in the tribe, and then you'd have that warrior train the sons. Sorry if I'm relying on essentially native history to an extent in Celtic tribes.
She was raised a priestess. She isn't Boudica.
But to have her demonstrate every skill at every turn of the way, when previously she didn't have half these skills, is just frustrating. Gilthanas mentions that his mom's ceremonial armor dates back to the Kinslayer Wars. I'm going to actually say that Laurana, being a trained warrior, because elf maidens are trained to fight, yes, she's the only daughter of Solostran, but the Qualinesti are a warrior culture. They train even their female heiresses. There's a lot of lore, there's a lot of ideas backing it up, in marked contrast to the Question tribe, which we have very little lore about. But the other thing is, we get a firm, fixed personality for Laurana. And though she's not a tomboy by any means, she's someone who constantly mentions she always wanted to prove herself worthy of Tanis and Gilthanas. And we gotta bear in mind, there's very little interest on the part of Solostran and Porthios in her. And she was raised with 2 boys. She had to run around and play in the mud with Gilthanas at one point worries over where Raistlin has disappeared. And Raistlin comes back and says, I was gathering ingredients for my spells. They must remain secret. But here's the thing. Raistlin's lying. Yes, some spell ingredients must remain secret, but the companions do know a lot of his ingredients. What spells is he prepping for? He's obviously hiding what spells it is. They must be new ones, if it is spells. Yes, he was gathering secret ingredients. He was obviously checking something out or doing something that he wanted to keep secret. So
that's Raistlin.
Yeah. So I'm actually going to defend some of the suspicions some people have towards him here, because what the heck was he doing? Raistlin's shady here. Now they end up running into a guy called Eben, who's on the side of the road. After a brief skirmish, he is the traitor who betrayed Gilthanas previously, and he is going to betray the party. Gilthanas swears all he wants is to save his people, and that he would gladly sacrifice his life. He actually admits, if you must know, Tantalos, your life means that, snaps his fingers, but the lives of my people are everything to me. That is all I care for now. The thing about Gilthanas is he'd throw everyone's lives for his people. He loves his people. The only one he would not sacrifice is Laurana, because that's his baby sister. And deep down, I'm not sure he would sacrifice Tanis. He has a lot of love and loyalty to Tanis. But on the other hand, he might, because he sees it as it's for the greater good. You know who Gilthanas, now that I think about it, reminds me of?
Who?
Sturm. Sturm would gladly sacrifice Tanis, Laurana, even everyone for Solamnia. Well, maybe not Laurana. Really, Gilthanas, we should look at him in that mold. Him and Sturm have a lot in common. In the next chapter, on page 351, we get Eben hinting and stating and trying to convince Tanis that Gilthanas is the traitor, that they should do away with him. And this kind of annoys Tanis, who is a little angered by this and annoyed that Caramon and Sturm agree with Eben. So that it's interesting that Tanis' childhood loyalties, even after Gilthanas says, Qualinesti above everything else. It's interesting because it seems that Tanis kind of went, okay, because Tanis deep down loves Qualinesti. It's his home country. He is a Qualinesti elf at his core. On page 352, the passage to Pax Tharkis that they're traveling through is revealed to be the Slamori, or the tomb of Kifkanan, the greatest of the ancient elvish kings, who is also a bit fickle at times. It is Raistlin who reveals that he senses a great evil ahead of them after Tanis consults with him. Although there is a funny moment right before that where Flint says, send the mage in first so he can warn them we're coming, suggesting that Raistlin is a traitor, because of course that's what Flint thinks, and also to send the mage to his doom. Typical Flint. But Raistlin's response is kind of funny. Throw the dwarf in. They're accustomed to living in dark, dank caves. You speak of the mountain dwarves! And then he ends up complaining about the mountain mountain dwarves like he always does. And Raistlin responds with, only because you were cast out. Raistlin gets a little overheated and zealous there, so that's, come on, seriously, you're going to argue with Flint on this one? When there's really no point to this argument. But Raistlin reveals that one path is very evil, only for Fizban to interrupt and say he senses great goodness too. The elves are not truly forgotten within, though evil things have come to rule in their stead. There's a discussion between Goldmoon and Caramon, though, on page 355 regarding Kitiara. And here, the way Caramon talks about Kitiara, I will admit, is a little disgusting. And the reason I say it's a little disgusting is because, I'm gonna be honest, I've never seen anyone talk about their sister this way. I've never met anyone who talks about their sister this way. It is so weird and kind of creepy. Goldmoon tells him, Tanis tells me you have an older sister, because Caramon's kind of eyeing up Tika a little too much for some people's taste. And Goldmoon says, I'm going to talk to you like an older sister. And Caramon grinned. Not like Kitiara, you won't, Lady of Queshu. He reveals, yeah, she taught him a lot of vulgarities. Kitiara, I mean. And she taught him to use a sword and fight with honor, but she also taught him to command. Where it gets creepy is, but I thought she and Tanis, Caramon winked. They certainly did, he said. Honestly, I would never talk about my sister that way. Even Barney Stinson in How I Met Your Mother is like, no, we don't even joke about that with my sister. We don't even think about it. We don't laugh about it. We don't talk about my sister that way. When Barney Stinson, arguably one of the most questionable individuals in a certain regard, is going, nope, that's gross. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to think about that. I don't want to joke about that. And Caramon's going, isn't it funny? Oh, you're a weirdo. You're a creep. Sorry, I'm just saying, you're a creep at that point. And there's going to be some Caramon fan who's going to bite my head off for saying, this is a very weird thing Caramon does here. If it was his sister-in-law, okay, sure. If it was a stepmother or an in-law or anyone else. But to have him actually say this sort of thing and give that sort of suggestive wink about his sister, there's a reason why one of Raistlin's catchphrases in Dragonlance is, don't be crude or don't be vulgar, brother. They discover the tomb of Kifkanon. There's a giant worm creature of some sort who nearly ends up melting Tanis' arm till Goldmoon heals him. Thank heavens for Goldmoon. I know I was bashing her earlier, but thank heavens for Goldmoon. And what the heck was Laurana thinking there? That said, Gilthanas and Raistlin on page 358 are examining a map, which Raistlin interrupts Tanis' argument with Laurana. Tanis is basically going, I want to send her back. And you have Raistlin, we can't afford anyone. She's coming with us. At this point, it's too late. So let's stop arguing, stop dilly-dallying. Oh, and in the fight with the giant worm, Kifkanon had apparently been the one to offer up his sword to Tanis because is likely descended from him. And I say likely because you got to bear in mind he's not directly related to the royal family through his mother married into the family. She was not actually a relative of theirs. And then, Tanis is her son. So he's not a direct biological relation. And if he is descended from Kifkanon, it'd likely be through Kifkanon's daughter, and thus you're going back quite a few generations. That said, there's magic fear that kicks in chapter 10. There's a great elvish quote, faithful beyond the end. This quote is found on page 367. Fizban has a humorous moment where he decides, a fireball would open the door. I think I remember that spell now. No old one, Tanis said hastily. It would fry all of us in this narrow passage. I just love how pyromaniacal Paladin is. He knows they're not going to go for his fireball idea. The thing is, he's basically trolling the heroes of the Lance all throughout the War of the Lance. He's almost trolling the entire world. I love him, but he's such a troll. Raistlin tries to convince the others not to open one of the doors. Sturm accuses him of being a traitor because, it's been a whole minute or two because they're in the chain room of Pax Tharkis where there's the famed defense mechanism of Pax Tharkis. They're almost in the fortress. Raistlin warns everyone that I've not sensed a power like this since the tower's high sorcery. But like I said, Sturm accuses him of being a traitor because it's been a whole maybe 3 minutes. He was starting to get the shakes because, hey, some guys drink a lot of booze, some guys shoot it up. Sturm accuses Raistlin of being a traitor.
Well, he's got to accuse someone. Tanis won't let him accuse Gilthanas anymore.
At least not right now, so he's got to accuse Raistlin. Gilthanas, though, opens the door, foolishly. Nearly gets them all snuffed out at the hands of the Banshee on the other side of the door, with most of the companions fleeing, and Raistlin ends up offering to sacrifice himself for his team because Of course he does. He does this on page 371, and his concentration is almost broken by the Dark Elf, but Vista and Dantalus pulls through for him. But it's really interesting that Raistlin basically says, all right, I'll sacrifice myself for you guys. His reward later is to be accused of being a traitor again.
Oh, of course.
In turn, the companions kind of screwed up and accidentally left Fizban and Tass behind, with Tass and Fizban having climbed up the chain a little. Of course, everything is in shadows, so Tass complains about not being able to see anything. Fizban then summons up a flame puffball, who refuses to climb up the chain because apparently this fireball is afraid of the dark. Why is it scared of the dark?
You have Paladin and Tass in the same room.
Yeah, I love this scene, and yet I'm just flabbergasted. It is one of the best scenes in all of Dragonlance history, but it's...
We should have had a book with just Fizban and Tass teaming up together.
Yeah, we needed that. We need more!
And throw in Flint while you're at it.
Yeah, just to give him, I don't know, a stroke from all the stress. Fizban also grumbles at one point, no discipline in the younger generation. His father. Now there was a puffball. Oh, and apparently the puffball ends up hovering near the tip of his hat and putting the hat of Fizban on fire. Fizban also ends up, at one point after they've reached the top, remembering, oh right, I left my staff down there, I better go down and get it. With Tass stopping him. Gilthanas directs them towards where the women are to be found in the fortress. Eben is suspicious, accuses Gilthanas of being a traitor. Tanis immediately hurries to the defense of Gilthanas. Sturm, Caramon, and Eben all suspicious of Gilthanas. Of course, Goldmoon apparently can sense the chi energy of Verminard. I mean, she can sense...
She's a cleric sensing evil.
Okay, yeah, I guess sense evil would be always on, but it's more like sense mystic evil. And Verminard has the same thing, so... And given that clerics are extremely sensitive to the King Priest's aura in the novels with the King Priest, I guess it could make sense. But how come they're not overtly sensitive towards Chrysania's holiness later on, given that she's far more holy than the King Priest at one point? I'm just a little confused there. That said, Tanis, who kind of thinks that the humans are against the elves here and the elves against the humans, and is a little irritated by this, pages 378 to 379, it's something I really like. It's a nice touch. And we start to see Gilthanas and Tanis rally together. Tass and Fizban discover Verminard's audience hall. Ember is revealed to the audience to be secretly named Pyros. Ember is just his name, because the dragons apparently have two names. One name they give out ordinary mortals, and another name they keep to themselves for dragons and draconians and their gods. Okay, makes sense. Pyros, though, is also there to spy on Verminard on behalf of Takesis, because of course, she doesn't trust anyone. Pyros is looking for the Green Stone Man, which is Barum, a man who has a stone engraved into his chest. And apparently Verminard has the weird satisfaction from feeding people to his dragon, Pyros. That's weird. And Pyros is one of the few man-eating dragons in Dragonlance. Yeah, they're both weirdos and creeps and evil on a whole other level. That said, Verminard forces Pyros to assume human shape, wherein he assumes the shape of a man, dressed in red robes, and he's very tall and muscular. And of course, Toad, the hobgoblin, arrives to present Barum, who is of great interest to Pyros, and Sestoon, the gully dwarf, one of my favorite characters. Sestoon is to be fed to Pyros, which is an atrocity, especially since, wouldn't it be kind of like feeding Pyros junk food or something? Verminard determines that Qualinesti must be destroyed. He's going to dispatch an army to them, and he wants to take off with Pyros to destroy it. This is probably what Solastron was afraid of, but that being said, it doesn't ultimately come to that, and the army Verminard sends out there is destroyed by Qualinesti. And there was much rejoicing. That said, one of the Draconian guards also brings news that Goldmoon has been sighted to Pyros. Let's just wait on this one. And Pyros initially says, I don't care. His message is, let me think about that one. What's more important is the Greenstone Man, keeping Verminard preoccupied. Pyros is playing his own game. He's a really interesting villain. I like him because he's a lot smarter than Verminard, who's not terribly bright. We're going to stop right after I ask Dan what did he think of these chapters.
A lot goes on, and we've got a lot of action.
And a lot of drama I love. And of course, Sestoon is in danger. So of course, Tass and Fizban are going to have to go on a mega rescue operation to rescue him. Tell us what you think in the comment section down below. Were we too harsh? Which parts did you like most in this video or these chapters? And don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button as though you were Reorcs smashing the world into shape.